The time is 2 p.m. Wonders! So it wasn't a fake?
Oh yes, 0% transfer charges and only 1% withdrawal charges. True. Use Max 8.
Orange Money.
Subscribe to Masuk for a strong and prosperous economy.
The 2PM Newscast
with
Frenouille Crispine.
Tuesday, November 4, 2025. Dear listeners, good afternoon and welcome to the 2 p.m. Newscast on Royal FM. In our main points, President-elect Paul Biya continue receiving congratulatory messages from international bodies for his re-election while preparations for his swearing-in ceremony is ongoing. Today, November 4, is International Day Against Violence and Bullying at School, and sociologists say it is vital to curb the phenomenon.
Report it to any trustful adult, such as teacher, counselor, principal, or parent. Document it to keep record of what happened on that day.
Out of the country, we take you to Guinea, Kenya, and out of the African continent with Mapala Zita. And in sports, we talk handball, CAF Champions League, and the UEFA Champions League when Biwa Brian joins us with our sports package. Those were the headlines. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a renewed pleasure to have you.
2025 presidential election, a special page in the news.
And for our special page, let's welcome Glory Ngange. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Frenouille Crispine.
Glory, you say preparations are ongoing for the swearing-in ceremony of incumbent President Paul Biya.
The director of the Civil Cabinet, Samuel Mvondo Ayolo, is currently chairing a cabinet meeting with some state officials today at the Yaoundé Conference Center to prepare for the swearing-in ceremony of President Paul Biya. The director invited a total of 41 state officials to take part in this crucial meeting today. Meanwhile, the Secretary General of the Central Committee of the Cameroon People's Democratic Movement, the CPDM, Jean Kwete, has announced nationwide celebrations to mark two major events on November the 6th, 2025. The swearing-in of President Paul Biya following his victory in the October 12 presidential elections and the 43rd anniversary of his accession to the Supreme Magistracy of Cameroon. According to the press release issued on November the 3rd, 2025, the twin celebrations will reflect the nation's commitment to peace, unity, and stability under the banner of greatness and hope. The Secretary General called on all CPDM militants, allies, sympathizers, and citizens of goodwill to join in festivities with a spirit of joy and respect for the laws of the Republic. Both commemorations will take place across CPDM sections nationwide under the supervision of section presidents, divisional and regional delegations of the Central Committee.
The third parliamentary session for 2025 opened yesterday, and you have details of the ceremony.
Yes, Crispin, the third ordinary session of the 2025 legislative year officially opened this Monday, November the 3rd, 2025 at both houses. The session at the National Assembly, which started off at 11 a.m., was chaired by Honorable Kavai Yege Jibril, Speaker of the Lower House, while later at the Senate, the third session opened under the patronage of the first Vice President of the Upper House, Abu Bakari Abdullahi, acting acting on behalf of the President of the Senate, Masenya Jifenji. The ceremony took place in the presence of several government members and senior administrative officials. This session, which is the last of the legislative year, will focus on examining the bills on the agenda, particularly those related to the state budget for the 2026 fiscal year. During his opening speech, Honorable Kavai Yege Jibri congratulated President Paul Biya on his re-election and praised his efforts in promoting freedom of expression and political pluralism. He also commended the government, ELECAM, and the Constitutional Council for their roles in ensuring a successful presidential elections. However, the president condemned the violent behavior of an opposition candidate who incited young people to vandalize public buildings, resulting in the death of Honorable Abe Michael and many other Cameroonians. The House Speaker further announces the inauguration of the re-elected president, which will take place soon. Meantime, the parliamentary reopening kicked off yesterday with a backdrop of protests from the Cameroon Democratic Union, the UDC. UDC MPs held up a protest banner in front of the chamber, which reads, "We refuse to remain silent in the face of a system that oppresses, divides, and betrays the people's trust. We demand electoral justice, courage, and strong actions, not to promises, no contempt for truth and peace. We are the UDC, the voice of those who still believe our country deserves better." The banner also stated that it is an opposition party and fully assumes its role because opposing injustice is not a choice, it is a duty. They stress that the party carries the faith of Cameroon standing tall, determined to turn the page and open a new era. Crispin.
President Paul Biya, or President-elect Paul Biya, continues to receive congratulations on his re-election glory.
In a press release made public on November the 1st, 2025, the Secretary General of Commonwealth, Honorable Shelley Botry, acknowledges the outcome of the recently organized presidential elections in which President Paul Biya was proclaimed winner. While extending her congratulations, the Secretary General also highlights that she has been following the challenges facing the country and assures Cameroon of its readiness to provide tailored technical assistance to strengthen Cameroon's institution and deepen public trust. Honorable Shelley also expresses great concerns about reports of unrest and tragic loss of lives after elections. While extending her condolences to the bereaved families, she in turn hopes that measures will be taken to investigate and prevent future incidents. The press release goes further to remind President Paul Biya that this next term is an opportunity for the national reflection on the existing governance system, including post-electoral grievances, so as to address the sources of division and discontentment. Furthermore, this new term provides prospects for firm actions towards a legacy of inclusion and institutional renewal, which will result in economic growth. The statement ends with commitment by the Commonwealth to work closely with the Cameroon government in advancing the above-mentioned points. Back to you, Crispin.
Thank you, Glory Ngange, for that package. Days after post-electoral tensions escalated in some parts of the country, with protesters disrupting some sectors, including economic or academic activities, school administrators have now developed strategies in order to continue with school routines. As such, Evans Williams Jobati discussed with some of these school administrators and cues in this report.
After tensions erupted in some parts of Cameroon, many schools, institutions were affected negatively, with academicians staying back home for the fear of the unknown, which in most cases has delayed the schooling program for the 2025-26 academic year. Pierre-Emmanuel Bamsek and Julius Neba are both school administrators.
Post-electoral tension in school milieu is not a reality, but we are affected by that tension.
We know Cameroon is undergoing a lot, but being an administrator in a school, what I struggle to do is to make my staff be as political as possible.
According to the primary school head, Julius Neba, staying apolitical is key to preserving a calm atmosphere in school premises.
We need to instill civic morals in our learner. We need to be apolitical but very truthful of the realities and everything. We stay in the context of education where our main aim is also practice part of the African indigenous education, which is a communalism, teaching unity for us to commune as learners come out and beautify our society.
Pierre-Emmanuel Bamsek, on his part, is saddened by the consistent absence from some students.
Some students are not coming to school because the parents are not sure about their security. Between the house to the school, something can happen. But in the school milieu, school is going on. The teachers are present and they are teaching. Some students are also present, but it is not 100% present.
Nevertheless, the secondary school principal is certain everything will go well in no time.
We are also doing the call for the present, and we note who is present, who is not present, so that after this period, we hope we will summon the parents to explain why the student will not come, and we suspend the sanction if the parents justify that they were aware about the absence of the student.
Drawing reference from the English author and politician Edward Bowler Lytton in 1839, the pen is mightier than the sword.
2025 presidential election, that was our special page in the news.
It is 12 minutes past the hour of 2 p.m. You are listening to the 2 p.m. newscast on Royal FM. As you heard in one of our top stories, today, November 4, is being observed worldwide as the International Day Against Violence and Bullying at School. The day is aimed at raising awareness about school violence, which infringes on children's rights to education and well-being, and promoting safer learning environments free from harassment and violence. In this light, our reporter Evans Williams Jobati spoke with sociologist Dr. Mabu, who begins by defining the terms harassment and violence within the school milieu.
Harassment in school refers to threatening, harmful, or humiliating conduct in the school premises. Harassment in school can negatively impact a student's ability to learn or his or her well-being. It can include physical actions like hitting or pushing. It can also include verbal abuses such as name-calling or threat. Relational aggression like spreading rumor or social, especially for those affected by any disability. Harassment in school is often based on a student's race, religion, or his gender or other personal characteristics, and it can occur face-to-face or online. When it happens online, we speak about cyberbullying.
Dr. Mabu further expatiates on how learners can better be protected when faced with verbal, physical, and psychological attacks in schools.
First of all, report it to any trustful adult, such as teacher, counselor, principal, or parent. Secondly, document it to keep record of what happened on that day, including date, time, place, and witnesses. Thirdly, know your right. In fact, school have a responsibility to prevent harassment and must then have policy put in place to address it. Lastly, seek support. Harassment can cause significant stress, anxiety, and depression. Professional and peer support is then of great help for those who are suffering from harassment in the school premises.
On to this feature story. In many Cameroonians' neighborhoods, a unique dynamic plays out daily. The phenomenon of neighbors borrowing from neighbors often out of necessity, sometimes out of convenience. This practical and complex trend reveals insight into community relationships, economic realities, and social norms. Our newsroom spoke to some Cameroonians who share their experiences and opinions on the subject. Get them in this Vox Pop compiled by Ngang Nadej.
Neighbors who make a lot for me are people who are hardly employed and who like idle talk. They are just looking for ways that they will get an access into your space and bring up conversations that are very unnecessary. And I'm naturally not really a sociable person, so I don't like to sit around with neighbors that will bring up conversations that will be unnecessary. And then these kind of people always like to beg a lot. There's one that I even have. She will just be like, just borrow me with this thing. They're asking for borrowing, but they are never going to give it back. It comes like, I want to borrow, but at the end of the day, they don't give it. So that was even begging in a borrowing form. And it always causes a lot of misunderstanding.
At times, when neighbors see things like that, it causes. At times, some will bake it and go and do better another thing with it. Some will bake and then they will just go and own it. They will never come back to give it again. They will just remain there with the thing. Then some will even bake it and destroy it, but they will not accept that they were the one that destroyed it. So at times, when they are coming to bake like that, I don't also really like it. Even though I'm also baking, I also bake too. I was the first person that had a fish in my area. So people were coming to bake and put their things. Then one day when it got hot, I was not even having money to repair it again. I just allowed it. And then that time they went and bought their own. When I will now go to them to bake and put my own, they will refuse. So since then, I've just decided that I cannot even go to bake or even ask for something.
I've never had a bad experience about sharing things with my neighbors, but I've heard of stories about people sharing things with their neighbors and it turns into witchcraft and all of that. My opinion is we should be careful those around us because we really do not know people's intention about us.
In the same vein, our reporter Ngang Nadej spoke with a sociologist who shares insight on this community dynamic. She put together the following report.
In many neighborhoods across Cameroon, a familiar refrain echoes through the doors like, "Can I borrow a cup of sugar or do you have a match?" This practice of borrowing from neighbors is deeply rooted in the traditional African values of communal living and Ubuntu, where neighbors are considered an extension of family and mutual support is a cornerstone of community life. Ngwenyi Victorine is a sociologist.
This issue of begging utensils from our neighbors is an old African phenomenon. I call it old African phenomenon because I don't think in the Western world people beg from others, they beg utensils from others. No, people have learned to be independent.
She notes that this communal practice, while fostering solidarity, also breeds a sense of dependency in some households.
Because of this issue of solidarity, so many people have turned to be lazy. They have turned to be blocked in their minds. They think that you must beg for something before you leave, but it is very, very possible for us to live without begging because all what we beg, those are things that we meet every day in the market, and if we are organized, every household can buy just what you actually need. We have copied it from our mothers that they used to do kitchen jangi. So there is nothing like because of African solidarity we must beg. If you make up your minds not to beg, you will not beg.
Furthermore, the proximity and generosity of neighbors contribute to the persistence of this practice, making it a habitual part of community interactions. Ngwenyi Victorine once again.
Most of the times is because we think that we can borrow this thing from this person, can learn from this person. I don't have a knife, there is no need for me buying a knife, I'll take it from my neighbor. I don't have a mortar, there is no need for me buying a mortar, I'll take it from my neighbor. It's because of that possibility, that proximity, that accessibility that makes us lazy.
The sociologist concludes by emphasizing that
people buy bottles of beers and they drink, but they can't buy a mortar. That mortar is about 2,500 francs. They don't have it, but they can distribute beer for 10,000 francs to people to drink. Taking utensils from left and right or borrowing from our neighbors is not quite a good attitude, but because it is a phenomenon that has been laid down like tradition from one generation to the other, and we think that we can do it.
Public finance management becomes complicated because banks can no longer lend to government. Public finance management becomes complicated because banks can no longer lend to government. So this sovereign bank doom loop in Cameroon is very present. Financial sector resilience has only been improved because we've recapitalized 2 banks. So there's further efforts are needed now for us to clear all of the arrears from banks and also deepen the domestic financial market.
Although he believes that Cameroon's economic program with the IMF bears little or no risk for the time being, Henry Kwam warns that there might be heavy consequences for Cameroon if the actual political unrest persists.
I don't think the IMF programs are at risk yet, but it's important that political uncertainty and civil unrest don't persist. Because if they drag on for months and months, then our ability to repay our debt naturally be called into question. There's also an opportunity here for the IMF to remind the Cameroonian government to treat its citizens with respect, because there's no reason giving us their money if they don't want us to accept some of their values.
A situation that is impacting the dynamics of our international relations.
Hypothetically, let's say the United States president wanted to punish Cameroon and therefore refuse them funds from the IMF. Other countries might step in. That might be a chance for France or Europe to show that they're closer and much more pragmatic allies with Cameroon than the rest.
Cameroon represents about half of the CEMAC community's gross domestic product and foreign reserves. Therefore, its participation at the annual meeting of the IMF in Washington is critical to the regional stability. The Ministry of Finance indicated that future cooperation with the institution will aim at consolidating fiscal reforms, sustain budget balance, and prioritize investment in infrastructures and employment sectors.
Let's now welcome Mapalazita, who has our file of what's making news out of Cameroon. Good afternoon, Mapalazita.
Good afternoon, Freeway Crispin.
Zita, we begin in Guinea, where the military leader has entered the race for next month's presidential elections.
General Mamadi Doumbouya will stand as a candidate in the country's first presidential elections since he seized power via a coup in 2021. Doumbouya handed in his documents at the Supreme Court on Monday, which was the last day for the submission of candidacy in the December 28th polls that are meant to restore constitutional order. Despite a promise when he seized power that he would not run, a new constitution submitted by the general and approved in a September referendum paved the way for him to do so, Crispin.
Zita, tell us about the landslide in Kenya and Uganda, which has left several families in agony.
Well, Crispin, over 40 people are now confirmed to have died following the multiple landslides that struck Kenya and Uganda's mountainous borders lately. On both sides of the border, many people are still missing, with search and rescue teams continuing to look out for them amid warning that more landslides could occur due to the heavy rains. Kenya's Interior Minister Kipchumba Murkomen has urged residents of affected areas to be cautious of any earth movement, while stating that local authorities are moving those at risk to higher grounds.
Out of the African continent, Zita, what's happening in other parts of the world?
Former U.S. Vice President Dick Cheney has died at age 84. This, according to a statement released by his family today. He was Vice President to President George W. Bush from 2001 to 2009, and having pushed the boundaries of his office to lead the Bush administration's war on terror and the misdirected war in Iraq, Cheney was reportedly a divisive figure in U.S. politics. Then the Italian government has announced a significant increase in the issuance of work permits for non-European Union workers, planning to distribute 500,000 permits between 2026 and 2028. The new initiative highlights the urgent need to tackle labor shortages across various sectors in Italy, especially the construction sector. It also represents an increase from the 450,000 permits issued over the past 3 years.
Mapalazita, thank you and see you tomorrow. Good afternoon, Biwa Brian.
Good afternoon, Frinu Crispin.
Following the appointment of Tabet Ngantu Beteng as head coach of the senior men's handball team, you say several handball experts have justified the appointment as a strong move.
Handball experts and international referee lecturer Chiffon Henry views the appointment by the federation as a strong and justified move. He tips that Berteng, who previously led the senior men's national team, now shoulders the heavy burden of lifting the men's team after a string of poor continental performances. His nomination notably comes barely 2 months to the African Cup of Nations scheduled for January 19 in Rwanda, and so experts insist that the federation's immediate priority must be granting the coach complete autonomy to select the squad and execute a rigorous training program without bureaucratic delays. Ashifon Henry in his own words.
He's a good guy. He's very, very devoted with his job. He's somebody who has shown all what he knows concerning training since he had his IHF coaching course A. He's somebody who had already trained the senior national team in the female category, and it's the only coach for now that we have in our country who has brought Cameroon into the second round of the World Championship. In the last competition, out of the 10 teams that were in the competition, Cameroon came back at the 9th position. Jan Tutabet will do his job, even though the time is very short. We have just 2 months before the competition. Federation has to do everything possible to give him all the possibilities so that he starts training, he selects the players now to start preparing for this competition. We have to leave him. People have to allow him do his job without any influences from behind. Let him be given the open hand to do his job, because he's the one to select players, he's the one to train them, and also with his assistants.
At continental level, Brian, the draw for the next edition of the CAF Champions League was conducted yesterday.
Yesterday, November 3, 2025, the Confederation of African Football (CAF) conducted the draws for the group stage of the 2025-2026 CAF Champions League in Johannesburg, South Africa. The event set the stage for Africa's top 16 clubs, which will compete in 4 groups between November 2025 and February 2026. Group A features powerhouse clubs from North and West Africa, including Moroccan champions RS Berkane, Egyptian financial heavyweights Pyramid FC, Rivers United, and Zambia's Powers Dynamos. Widely considered the group of death, Group B contains some of the continent's most historically successful clubs, with record holders Al Ahly of Egypt in the headline, alongside Tanzania's Young Africans, the Moroccan military team AS FAR, and Algerian giants JS Kabylie. South African champions Mamelodi Sundowns will lead Group C following their strong run in the previous season. The South African side will face off against Sudanese giants Al Hilal, Algeria's MC Algiers, and DR Congo's FC Saint Eloi Lupopo. Last in the pair is Group D, which features Esperance of Tunis, who will face a verified field of contenders including Simba SC of Tanzania, Angola's Pedro of Luanda, and Mali Stade Malien.
We end our Spotify in Europe, where match day 4 of the UEFA Champions League set in this evening, Brian.
The top fixture will see Liverpool face off against Real Madrid at Anfield in England at 9 p.m. today, followed by a high-profile fixture like the game between Paris Saint-Germain and Bayern Munich at 9 p.m. Other games will see Tottenham Hotspur face off against FC Copenhagen, Olympiacos will go for PSV Eindhoven, Juventus will face off against Sporting CP, while Bodo Glimt will go for AS Monaco for late-night fixtures at 9 p.m. Early fixtures will see Napoli face off against Frankfurt at 6:45 p.m., while Slava Prague will face off against Arsenal, who are currently front-runners in the Premier League, at 6:45 p.m.
Olivier Ndema Epo is here with a summary of this newscast in the French language. Good afternoon.
Bon après-midi, Frénuit Crispin. Le Cameroun conclut un nouveau programme économique et financier avec le Fonds monétaire international, le FMI. Ceci pour la période allant de 2026 à 2029. La proposition de prolongement a été préalablement soumise à l'approbation du chef de l'État, Paul Biya du Cameroun, le 30 octobre dernier. Ce faisant, l'État camerounais et l'institution de Bretton Woods vont maintenir les appuis budgétaires fournis par le FMI pour le développement du Cameroun. Hors de nos frontières, le général Mamadi Doumbouya a fait acte de candidature hier pour la présidentielle du 28 décembre prochain en Guinée. Le président de la transition en Guinée depuis le coup d'État de 2021 avait pourtant affirmé qu'il ne se présenterait pas à l'élection présidentielle. Mamadi Doumbouya l'a pourtant fait hier, le 3 novembre 2025, soit au dernier jour de la période de dépôt des candidatures. 7 candidats au total prendront part au scrutin présidentiel. Sport pour finir, la Fédération camerounaise de handball, la FECAHAN, a procédé à des nominations au sein de ses services. Tabet Nana Djantou Bertin devient le sélectionneur des Lions indomptables A. De même, l'instance fêtière du handball au Cameroun restaure la coordination des équipes nationales. Un poste de coordonnateur des sélections nationales a ainsi été pourvu.
The newscast was technically assisted by Salomon Isana, our sound engineer and studios clerk, video editing Alan Quake, and producer Glory Ngange, news editing Mapala Zita, editorial coaching Abel Bela Samari, coordination Roger Kiek, general supervision the Reverend Pastor Bisaya Manuel Noel. For presentation, I have been Frinwe Crispin. Take the rendezvous for tomorrow, same time, 2 p.m. Up next is Fraîcheur Royale, presented by Raissa Parker. It is the second part of Fraîcheur Royale. Why are you smiling?
Bon, peut-être parce que le prochain rendez-vous c'est demain, que je vais encore te voir demain, je souris. Sinon, tu pensais à quoi?
Okay. All right. Nothing.
Raissa Parker, deuxième partie dans un instant. Ce sera un moment agréable, comme ça a été le cas en première partie avec nos auditeurs. Donc, si vous êtes à l'écoute, restez bien en place. On aura la page pratique avec Dorine. On aura aussi ce moment de musique choisi par nos auditeurs également. C'est vrai qu'il y a la chanson de Dodo parmi. Donc on va bien s'amuser. On se dit à tout à l'heure.
Interesting as usual on Fraîcheur Royale. Have a blessed day.